Good morning, people of Holden and Dala. On this first Sunday in August, we continue our journey through the road trips of the Bible with the road trip that Jesus himself made. And we're recounting the story of the boy Jesus lost in the temple. Now, every year, his parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up, as usual, for the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their friends and their relatives. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished, and his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth, and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years, and in divine and human favor. The word of the Lord. Well, this morning we continue to think about road trips of the Bible, and we hear the only story that we have about Jesus as a young man, as a teenager. In this account from Luke's Gospel, we have the very only story about Jesus as a teenager, his growing up years, as his family travels from their hometown of Nazareth to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. Many times we talk about this story as the boy Jesus being lost in the temple. But the more I read this story, the more I'm convinced that that is not what happened at all. I wonder if it isn't instead the boy Jesus has found a place where he belongs, in God's house, among God's people. Belonging is an important part of our human experience, where we belong, the groups we belong to. Having a sense of belonging helps us weather the storms in our lives, the difficult times we face. Belonging helps us know and claim our identity. The same is true for Jesus in this time right before he becomes an adult, as he finds where he belongs in the midst of the teachers in the temple. There's a website right now that talks about how important belonging is for all of us as humans. And the website is called belongingbeginswithus.org. They collect stories of times when people felt that they really belonged in a community, in a certain time, in a certain place. And they ask people to submit a picture of a belonging, a physical, tangible belonging that connects to that time in their lives. The website describes their purpose in this way, and it's filled with wonderful stories. The belongings we hold on to are reminders of where we've been and what we've overcome. They tell us powerful stories of when we felt at home. Explore these stories of understanding, community, and belonging from people across America. So, this morning, I'd like to share a few stories of belonging with you as we consider where Jesus found that he belongs and as we consider where we belong. The first picture of a belonging is of a journal. And Maria from Minnesota wrote about this journal and her sense of belonging. This journal represents finding my second family. When I arrived in Arizona as an exchange student, I struggled to learn English and make friends. I desperately missed my family, but my host family was determined to help me. They included me in all aspects of their lives and community. It helped me spread my wings, and I feel like this was a second home. I kept a log of my entire journey coming from Chile, the highs and the lows. I always remember that journey in my work as a school social worker. We all need a helping hand to help us find our place. I want to help students get the support they need, the way my host family did for me. And again, this journal is a picture, a sign of that sense of belonging. The second item that is a sign of belonging is this key. Zoe from Maine wrote, "This key represents home and where memories grow." When I first got to Maine, I was still grieving the loss of my homeland. I felt like a bird with a broken wing, looking for support. But when my family finally started settling into my home, I found that our community was filled with warm, welcoming people that wanted to know us, pray with us, and understand the customs we brought from Lebanon. The weight of their kindness knocked down walls of isolation and let light into our world. When I welcome new people to Maine, I replicate that same warmth and kindness. I strive to be the support they need to take flight. And a final story of belonging, symbolized by this stethoscope. Camille from Tennessee wrote, "My first stethoscope reminds me of my calling to help others. As I bounced around growing up, it was hard to adjust. I never knew where I truly belonged. That search continued today until I joined the community of nurses and doctors I work with. There's solidarity in working toward the same goal of keeping people healthy. We have to nurture and respect each other if we want to make our patients feel at home and at ease. A stethoscope teaches you to listen closely, a metaphor I keep with me all the time. In listening, we have the opportunity to make a better, healthier, more welcoming world for each other." Now, Jesus didn't submit an item like one of these, but the story we have from him today talks about his belonging. What might his reflection have sounded like? He might have written something like this: "When I was 12 years old, my family went to Jerusalem, like they did every year, to celebrate Passover. The crowds during Passover were huge, and we traveled as part of a big group with our extended family. When Passover was finished, I stayed in the temple. I was so caught up in talking to the teachers and the elders that I missed my family returning home. I should have been worried and scared, but I wasn't. I knew this was where I belonged. My parents were a day's walk from Jerusalem before they noticed I was missing, and they began to search for me. They eventually found me there in the temple. My parents were anxious and upset and asked me, 'Child, why have you treated us this way? Look, your father and mother and I have been searching for you in great anxiety.' But I answered them, 'Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?'" Jesus belonged in the temple, in his Father's house, among God's people. And we also belong in the same place. We belong in God's house, among his people. In baptism, we are brought into this family, the church, that journeys with us throughout our lives. It's a family of people from all over the world, all ages, with all sorts of experience, but we belong to Christ and we belong to each other. We have plenty of objects that remind us of that belonging: our baptismal candle, a confirmation picture, the Bible we were given as a child, the bread we hold in our hands at communion. Just as Jesus knew that he belonged in his Father's house, we also belong here, in his house among his people. We belong to Christ and we belong to each other. Amen.